And welcome to the Tournament Expert Tutorials. In this tutorial we will focus on the ability to move data around in the player list, to move rows up and down, to move information from one location in the player list to another location in the player list, to add blank rows, the kinds of tasks that you might do when you're organizing teams and groups in the player list. The commands we'll be working with today are on the Edit menu, and they will be commands like cut rows, paste rows, copy rows, cut selected, copy selected, that sort of thing. So let's begin. Let's say that I'm on Mr. Polk's row and I wanted to move Mr. Polk up in the player list. I can go to Edit and then click on the Move Rows Up command, and notice that Mr. Polk moved up. 11 is now above 10. Mr. Polk is above Mr. Tyler. Let's say I wanted Mr. Polk above Mr. Harrison. So I click I click Edit and then click Move Rows Up again, and notice that now Polk is above Harrison. Well, that's a little bit cumbersome. You don't want to have to do clicking all the time. So on the Edit command, notice that next to Move Rows Up is the shortcut key F8. So here I am again on Mr. Polk's row, and clicking F8 I can now move Mr. Polk up in the player list with each click of the F8 key. On the Edit command, on the Edit menu, is the command Move Rows Down, and its shortcut key is F9. Here I am on Mr. Polk's row. I'm clicking F9, and each time I click F9, Mr. Polk moves down in the player list, and I'm sort of watching the S1 column, and now 11 is back in, and Mr. Polk is back where he started in the player list. I can also move more than one row at a time. Let's say that I wanted to move George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison down in the player list. Well, I have them selected here, and remember that F9 is the shortcut key for moving rows down. So I click F9 once, they move down. I click it again, they move down again. I click it again and they move down. It's just a quick way of moving them, to an area that's close, so you can exchange one group with another or something like that. Now I'm going to tap the F8 key and just move them back up where they were. Alright, so that's a quick way of moving rows. Now there might be a time when you actually want to cut a row or rows and move them to somewhere else in the player list, and not have to move them down, tap, 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 tap to get them to another location. So in this case I'm going to click in the Edit commands the Cut Rows command. Alright, so notice that rows 1 through 4 are gone, and I want to move them to an area right above Grover Cleveland. So click Edit and Paste Rows, and so the rows that I just cut, 1, 2, 3, and 4, have now been placed in the player list above Mr. Cleveland. Once again, we have shortcut keys, so notice that the Cut Rows is Control W and the Paste Rows is Control R. So let's use those. So I'm going to click and select, and actually I could do the selection in any column, so I'm going to do it here, 2, 3, and I've got those 4 selected. Control W to cut those rows, they're gone, and now go up here and I'll put them in above, clicking on the miscellaneous column, Control R to paste them back in. So it doesn't make any difference where you select in the row, we just know that that is the current row and to do things according to that row. You can also grab information. Let's say that I wanted to move Mr. Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, and Tyler and take their last names and move them somewhere else in the player list. Well, now you can use your standard commands such as Control X, Control C, and Control V. So I'm going to use Control X to cut the data. And if I wanted to put them in the miscellaneous column, I'll click here and Control V to paste them. Alright, and now I can just simply reselect those, and so I'm selecting them again. This time I'm going to copy them, Control C, and put them back over here, Control V. Alright, and then if I wanted to remove these, then I'd just go over here and do Control X, and now they're gone, and I could move them or I could just not do anything with them. And you can do the same thing with any data. Let's say I wanted to move these numbers, that I had a need for the numbers 7 through 17 somewhere else in the player list. So I'm going to copy those numbers and then place them starting right here and paste those numbers. So that was Control V. It was Control C and then Control V. Alright, so that's the ability to move information around. And now quickly let me just show you how to add rows and delete rows. If I want to remove a player, then I can do Control D and the player is gone. And then I'm just going to do edit and undo and bring the player back. So, and that information was right here under Control D, and that was delete the player, and that will delete any one player, any selected row in the player list. To add a blank row, I would use either a command from here, Control A, for instance, or blank row above, and it puts a blank row above Mr. Taylor, that was on Taylor's row. If I want to put a row below, then I click edit and blank row below. So here's the row below. And of course you have shortcut keys of Control A and Control B, A for above, B for below. So if I wanted a row above President Hayes, then I would do Control A. If I wanted a row below Chester Arthur, I would do Control B for below. So that's a quick way of doing it. Let me just show you one other item, and that is that if I right click in this area, then a lot of these same commands are available through the context menu, so that I can cut selected, copy selected, I can cut rows, paste rows. There's one command that is only available though through this context menu, and that's the ability to delete multiple rows. So let's say that I'm gonna highlight these rows and I want to delete them from the player list. So I right click in that area and select delete rows, and watch, they will disappear. They're gone from the player list now. And of course I can always do Control Z to bring them back again, or I could have clicked on edit and then undo. So that's moving information around in the player list, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you in another tutorial.